independent. Let's
Yeah.
talk about America and how much we love everything it's doing right now.
Let's get into it.
Naomi, do you need anything? You can make
We're gonna
noises.
immediately refer to the fact that you're in there.
Yeah. If you thought you were just going to be a bystander in this exercise,
You can come sit next to me and we can share a mic. If you want. You don't have
She's
to.
decided to keep her mouth completely closed and not react.
You don't have to. Okay. If we talk to you, if you want the mic,
we need to develop a complex system of gestures
Emma, you
and
can
codes
just-
that.
We do need a hand signal system.
I need to know she wants it.
Okay.
You can go. You can say sign language for more.
Is that like?
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds good.
We'll address you. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Normal conversational
Yeah. Okay.
cues. We will look at you and say words. that
But
you
I
know.
might use sign language.
Emma is a gorilla and will sign at you.
Just my usual social cues. I won't make eye contact. I'll look at your mouth and I'll talk about the weather. That means it's your turn to start talking. Does anybody else do that? I just look at mouths.
I had to
I didn't.
get out of that habit because I did it for so long, and then I started and people started noticing in improv scenes, and people would be like, "Why is he looking at my mouth?"
I don't think I do. I think I look at people's whole face.
Welcome to We Are Definitely Afraid of the Dark. It's the scary movie podcast for people who are scared of everything. I'm Steven Smith, and I'm a Scooty baby. I'm just trying that out.
Okay. You really committed to it.
I'm a Scooty baby. No, I can't do it.
It works. No, it works.
That other voice that you heard is Emma Holder.
Hi. I'm a rational person with normal everyday fears. No, I'm scared of everything. Probably the most.
Definitely the most. And then also with us, as always, is Kyle Romero. He's our horror Sherpa.
That's right. I'm Kyle Romero, and I am brave and strong and powerful.
We have a guest this week. He is a comedian, an improviser, a performer. You can catch him every Friday night at Movie Riot. Yes. Lance Gilstrap!
Yeah.
And every Saturday night
Yeah,
with
every
Midnight Society.
Yeah, I wasn't going to correct.
All right,
I'm
push it.
going
I don't
to.
wanna
All right,
push it.
save it for the plugs, Hollywood. Okay, guys, what are we scared of this week? Emma, I defer to you because I know you've got something.
Well, I have been scared about just like the dark in general.
A classic.
Just going back to my roots. So I think what it is you guys all saw that scary movie last week. Some people did.
Mm-hmm. Hereditary.
Yeah. And I just I've been thinking a lot about scary things. So dark has been bad.
Run down your top 5 for us.
Well, dark.
Dark.
And then
Dark bad, I would say.
Yeah. So I've been sleeping with the lights on a little bit, which is cool for the Earth. Sorry, Earth. And my roommates who we all split the electricity bills. But part of it is they often are both not there. I should not be telling people this.
I'm regularly alone. No big deal.
But everything's locked and I have real strong muscles. So don't even try it.
This is actually the 7th microphone we've given to Emma Day. She's crushed all of them.
I just
she grabs
don't even
them and
know.
she squeezes them and they just crumble like tinfoil in her hand.
Yeah. So I guess dark is my main fear.
Uh-huh. Lance, you afraid of the dark?
Not really.
What is your coward rating? Where do you fall on this sort of spectrum? I'm kind of in the middle, more Emma leaning.
It takes something pretty scary to scare me. I'll get scared of a movie occasionally if I'm alone. But yeah, I don't really get. I get scared of just noises, like weird noises if I'm alone. That's it.
Any time of the day?
No, it's got to be dark. It's usually got to be dark.
Classic.
Yeah.
Dark makes everything scarier.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Do you watch a lot of horror movies? Is that like a...
Yeah, I like horror movies a lot. Yeah.
You're a movie guy.
I'm a movie guy. Yeah, you can call me that. Yeah.
Well, so we were talking, Kyle and I were talking about this guy who made Hereditary because he's sort of like a bit of a snob. I think he kind of like looks down his nose on genre
That's
film.
the kind of the vibe I get from him in interviews. He's often saying like, yeah, I made this horror movie and people love it as a horror movie, but I don't want to be the horror guy. I don't want to be pigeonholed. And he said like, the only reason I really made Hereditary was easier to get a horror movie financed. It's like, come on, man.
The guy that did The Witch is kind of like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's also kind of like, it's not a horror movie. It's just where my movie ended up. Like
They all do that. Even Jordan Peele, when he talks about Get Out, he's like, it's a social thriller. It's
Right.
like, okay,
These
come
are horror
on.
movies. People
Well,
are afraid
there's
of
a stigma.
genre stigma.
Yeah.
there's a stigma. Yeah.
Yeah, they really are running from it. It's interesting.
Are you guys afraid of anything this week? Do we even need to stop and ask you at this point, Kyle?
It's always gonna be like existential fear. It's never usually gonna be like the dark. I mean, I am scared of the dark a little bit in the way that like, I don't know, if it's nighttime and I'm alone outside, like I get scared more outside than in my own home, which is something.
No doubt. I
You're,
think
you're both you and Emma are both giving kind of like looks at each other like we
we're
got
right.
him.
yeah, we're giving each other nonverbal
valid.
cues. We're feeling very self-satisfied. You beat around the bush, but you're still afraid of the dark.
Well, and we also at this point we've talked about Hereditary in our last episode, and so that
But we're not going to give any spoilers.
we're not.
No.
Yeah, we're
Thank
you know,
you.
not
Spoilers.
going
I
to talk
can
about
see
any
Lance
specifics.
tensing up.
Yeah, he's like fully making a fist and shaking it at me right now. That stuck with me. There's stuff in that movie that stuck with me. So yeah, I can still feel things, which was nice
good
for
to know.
Hereditary to confirm for me.
I'm reading. I think I've talked about this before. We've only got a few episodes. Only a couple of them are out. But I've discussed this before. I was a bit of like a weird kind of horror kid, and then I don't know, something happened in my 20s, and I like lost all my taste for it, or like my resilience, basically. But I loved all those Stephen King books. Did a lot of horror makeup. That was a thing for a while. Like, sort of. Spirit gum and liquid latex. Anyway, we'll do a mini-sode about my misspent youth. But I'm reading this new Stephen King book, and it's like you like him
I love
as
Stephen King, yeah.
Okay. So I think it's like this interesting return to form. It's like kind of everything I read about it before I got it was that it's kind of like his 80s oeuvre kind of reborn. Scary, a monster killing kids. It's really great. But it's like more adult in that sense that it's the monster like sort of frames people, uses like basically CSI tricks against them. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm reading it again because I'm into this whole thing now, and it's I gotta tell you, it's fucking with my sleep. I wonder if that would be if you would ever.
I don't read
scary books.
No. I did not read Goosebumps as a child.
Scary stories to read in the dark? Or?
So my sister did read some of those to me, and they fucked me up.
Yeah.
Like there's one called Harold, where the guy like lives in a shack on a mountain, and some hiker men get killed by him,
Harold's a classic.
and that terrified me. And my
It's a
sister would
scary
just have to
story
say the word
invented in
Harold.
Chicago, but no.
Yeah, I know. All those I can't. I have read a few thrillers, but I've never read a Stephen King book, even though I'm from Maine.
Oh my God! Yeah,
They
that's
don't-
like your.
No,
he's
like
your,
you're, I feel bad about
he's
it.
a local boy done good.
Yeah, but never. No.
I feel like there are some that are not out and out like monster terrifying. Like it is.
There are ones I could
terrifying.
read. I mean, I've seen some of the movies. Like I've seen Thinner. I've seen The Shining. I've seen Dolores Claiborne. I've seen.
Did you watch the JFK one?
No, was that the
That's the
1960s?
Franco
miniseries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to get into it.
The book is good. I liked the book.
I should watch it because I love everything JFK, but it wasn't enough JFK. It was too much time travel, not enough Kennedys.
Too much Franco, not enough Kennedy.
Yeah.
I feel like we could find books in that in his like body
Oh, yeah.
of work that
Sure.
you'd like
Yeah.
that
They're
wouldn't
not
fuck you
scary
up.
ones.
And
different
I've also seen Carrie.
Yeah, of course.
I liked
How'd you
that.
do with Carrie?
That didn't scare me.
Scare you really?
No.
Interesting.
Really? Even with the kind of The
I mean-
end when the hand
Yeah.
jumps up out of the end.
Probably moments jump scared me, but like it didn't stay with me.
Uh-huh. Oh.
The Shining did though.
Yeah.
Lance, I had a question for you. How do you do with like real life, like physical horror experiences, like haunted houses, things like that?
Okay, yeah. In a haunted house, I try to get scared because it's with friends and it's like, more fun. So I'll let myself get pretty scared of the haunted houses as long as it's like a good one.
What's your strategy? Do you like get in a chain and try to get in the middle? Because then if you're in the front and the back, you're fucked. Right? I mean,
That's my strategy.
That's
Go
how
in
they
the
pick 'em
middle.
off,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Scooby Doo. The
Yeah.
person at the end just
I do the
disappears.
classic grab your friend, put them in front of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Human
mean, I
shield
don't
approach.
go.
Yeah, that's also
Yeah,
that's
there you
also
go.
a way of
Well, that's why I
Abstinence.
ask, is because I don't go. I don't
Yeah.
do them.
Oh,
Like,
really?
Yeah, they terrify me.
I haven't done it
I
since
don't
high
like the
school.
idea of people that can like. I mean, I know a lot of them they like can't touch you or whatever, but even just like getting up in your face,
Well,
it's just like I don't. I'm
Jump
not
scares
too
are
bad.
like the dirtiest, meanest trick in the book, and that's all they are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's worse. It's so bad.
It's worse.
Yeah.
To me, it's way worse.
Do we want to talk about what we're going to watch this week?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
let's do it.
Okay, so Lance, the way that we're doing this now, you've not had the benefit of hearing it yet, but you've got a bag there.
Mm-hmm.
It says Fantastic Fest on it, which is
so
a
it's
movie
already
thing.
thematically relevant, which is a movie thing. I love it.
Wow, we were just racking up points all over the place.
So we asked you to bring 3 movies. Per our ground rules, you tell Emma what the movie is first. So
I already know what they
You
are,
know what
yeah.
they are. Kyle and I do not know. So what we'd ask you is to, ham it up a little bit, pull them out one by one, tell us what each movie's about a little bit. Maybe we'll talk about it, and then we'll obviously pick one.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the one that I didn't bring. That's streaming is the more obvious pick.
Okay.
Poltergeist. Classic. It is a Steven Spielberg movie. I know
Yeah.
that a lot of people argue about it, but he stepped in and directed a lot of it. It has that Steven Spielberg feel. It has that 80s feel. It is a full-on just haunted house movie. Ghosts gone amok. Spooky and fun.
So fun.
And Craig T. Nelson's in it.
Yeah, Coach.
Does somebody get assaulted by a tree?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
But not assaulted.
You might be thinking of Evil Dead.
Evil
is
Dead
a
is-
different kind of assault, but there is a spooky tree, and there's not that kind of assault in Poltergeist.
Okay. I've never. Okay, so Emma, you seen
Yes.
it?
I have not seen
I feel
it.
like this is maybe randomly one you might have, but
I know I haven't, and I'm open to it. I haven't vetoed it, because I think it won't scare me too badly.
It is essentially a children's movie. Like,
okay.
it's got some
Okay.
scary stuff in it
Well-
for sure. But
Don't tip the scales, Chief.
I mean, really,
I
it's-
don't trust you. No, I would watch it because it is canon, and like I think I'll be okay.
Well, this is an interesting thing. I think that we've watched some weird stuff today, so you know a lot about movies. What do you think about what we've seen already? We kicked it off with Halloween, then we took some weird
Right.
garden paths
Right.
through some stuff that is like maybe you would argue is not like canon or not foundational stuff that she and I need to see.
Yeah, well, like Halloween obviously is a classic. Creep is barely a horror movie, and The Invitation is hella not a horror movie. Like The Invitation is not a horror movie.
Shots fired,
Sorry.
Nicole and
Sorry.
Danielle.
Yeah,
Sorry.
got 'em.
What is it then? Like
It's-
a psychological?
Yeah, psychological thriller.
Thriller?
Yeah,
Okay.
drama. I don't like it that much. I think the ending is cool. Like
The
you
ending
guys
is very
said.
cool.
It takes
The
a long
ending
time
is
to
very
get
Takes a
there.
long time
It's
to get
horror
there.
adjacent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got horror elements. I just
Yeah.
wouldn't call it a horror movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, cool. So that's one.
That's one.
All
So I don't know why I have to be visual in a podcast medium, but I'll pull out the others here. We'll go Candyman.
Oh, baby.
So Candyman.
Cabrini Green Project.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
this
you
is
got
what
it.
I
You
know.
got it. All right. It's about the Cabrini Green projects. This journalist is studying the myth of Candyman, a man with a hook for a hand that will cut you from groin to gullet, and she kind of gets sucked into his kind of world.
Okay.
Philip Glass did the music, and it's super it almost hypnotizes you the way they do a lot of the cinematography with the Philip Glass music, and it's just like super eerie. Not a ton of jump scares. It's not super scary,
Yeah.
but it is creepy.
Is it like more slashery then? What would
No, there's not a lot.
It's not really
yeah.
slashery. It's you think it's gonna be slashery
a guy
because he's
killing
like got the
kids.
hook for the hand, but it's more creepy. It's got some pretty haunting images in it. I
Yeah.
would say.
It also takes a turn. Like it's hard not to it's hard to sell the movie without spoiling it.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it kind of like takes it takes a fun turn.
yeah.
Emma, thoughts on Candyman?
That is the least likely movie we're going to watch because I think it will scare me. I just remember the video, which is not the cover you have, but the cover that's very similar to the Silence of the Lambs cover. Like it's like a white face with a bug on it. I just remember seeing it in the video store.
Is it a bee?
And yeah,
It's probably a bee. There's
And
bees in it.
and seeing the Silence of the Lambs one and just associating the two movies and them both just being very scary to me.
Are they mouth bees?
There are mouth bees. There are
course
mouth
there
bees
are.
in it.
Yeah, no.
Spoiler.
I
mouth
like your
bees.
hesitation. Like, do I disclose the
Yeah.
mouth bees or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a specific question.
So when you
Yeah.
when you communicated what the list was, did you guys have any discussion? Or you just like, thank you for this information? I will
Emma
take it
said-
under
I
advisement."
maybe said,
Fuck you or something like
yeah,
that.
pretty much that.
Something like that. And then I told Emma that I was going to pick two other scarier movies, but Naomi helped me like kind of shy away from that by telling me that there's no way that Emma would watch The Witch or It Follows.
And Naomi knows me well. And that's true. Thank you, Naomi.
Because my original plan was The Witch, It Follows, and Candyman, knowing full well that Emma would be like, no,
No
no,
Candyman.
no.
So I
we'll
would
watch
have to watch
Candyman.
Candyman.
Okay,
Oh,
interesting
you-
strategy.
Yeah,
I
you
love
know
the
me.
strategy.
You
Yeah,
know
you,
me.
you
Thank
gotta
you
start
so
playing
much.
your cards like closer to your chest on these, because then if people listen, they'll be like, they'll set these weird like honey traps. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
future guests use Lance as an example. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. We're trying to entrap Emma into these terrible experiences so we can juice the content and get it out there for you, the people.
Okay, so Candyman is at the bottom of the list. We
Yeah.
got Candyman, Poltergeist.
I haven't vetoed it, but it's not at the top of the list.
You did
Okay.
say we're
You said we're absolutely
very
not watching
the
that.
least
Least
likely
likely
to
to
watch that one. So I
And
would
where I
qualify
do
that
have-
as a veto.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready for the third?
drum
Yes,
roll.
we
All
are
right.
ready.
The third one is The Changeling, which is hard to even find a DVD copy of these days. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't remember this movie.
I haven't seen this one.
Oh, you haven't seen
I
The
have not
Changeling?
seen this one.
Oh, that's
This
Oh.
is
exciting.
it's kind of cheesy, but it's a classic like haunted house movie. George C. Scott, crazy rich guy moves into this giant house, and it's spoiler alert, haunted, and he kind of has to figure out what the ghost wants, and the whole movie is just about him figuring out what this ghost wants. And it's a creepy little kid ghost, which is like what makes it kind of like this is the first like creepy little kid ghost movie that I ever saw. And this is the movie that me and my brother when we were kids saw, and we got so terrified that I was a paper boy. My brother would wake up in the mornings to fold the papers with me, just because he didn't want to be, because we slept in the same room. He didn't want to like be alone,
Yeah.
so he would like wake up and fold the papers with me and like go on my route with me in the early mornings. We were both so terrified of this movie.
Ooh. Good.
That's-
Strong
But it's not.
recommendation.
It's like
It's manageable.
yeah, it is manageable. It's more creepy than scary, and it is kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I think I could do either of the haunted house movies.
Poltergeist or Changeling.
So Poltergeist or Changeling. I'm kind of tempted to do Changeling because you haven't seen it.
That's
That
the
seems
exact
like a
way I
tiebreaker.
I feel like I've seen part of Poltergeist, and I'm more excited to see something I haven't. I'm really excited to see something you haven't.
I'm very interested to see the Changeling. I've actually been trying to get this, and it is really hard to find. Like, there's supposed to be a Blu-ray coming out at some point soon, but you can't. It's not out yet, so I don't know how to do. I exist purely on the internet, so if it's not in that form,
Physical media.
might as well not exist to me.
Yeah. Well, I think is that a consensus?
yeah,
then?
let's watch the
watch
Changeling.
Oh,
The
awesome! I
Changeling.
hope
Yeah.
you don't hate it.
Yay!
Yay.
All right, let's watch it. All right, we're back. We watched The Changeling. I'm just gonna. You don't mind me. I'm just fiddling with my phone. So, what did everybody think? Let's go around the horn. Well, first of all, I would say just as a point of interest, our first proper ghost movie and haunted house movie kind of all in one. That's kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think so. It covered a lot of tracks. What is that an expression? I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. It's definitely of its time as far as pacing and everything goes, but it's kind of shocking just how much of the haunted house tropes, how many of the haunted house tropes you can trace back to this.
Or in a 38-year-old movie.
Yeah, like I was thinking a lot about The Ring while I was watching it because of
The Well.
There's well stuff, which we'll get into the plot, I guess, but and it's in Seattle. The American version of The Ring is set in Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to imagine that's intentional on their part. But yeah, I thought it was great.
This is funny, Emma, because when we were we left the theater last night, and we were both in agreement that there's no way in hell you should ever see the movie, see Hereditary, but we were like, we want to do an in theater thing, and it's like, so it'd have to be like tonally appropriate, and they advertised something before it that was like a British movie, sort of drawing room,
The Little
spook.
Stranger. It's like one of those kind of like The Others or like this.
Feels tonally like this, and I'm like, that might be a good thing to try to go see in the theater together.
Yeah.
We'll do it in a Cinemark where we can sit in the back row and look at our phones the entire
Your
time.
face is
But-
just
No.
extremely skeptical right
I mean, no, I'm open to that. Like, this movie didn't scare me a lot.
now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if I had been watching it by myself,
Sure.
I probably would have turned it off, or just changed to something else. But I liked it. It wasn't. It was more like I was interested in the mystery of it,
Mm-hmm.
of who the ghost was and what he wanted. Because he was kind of, until the end, a friendly ghost.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't really do much bad stuff. So I had no problem with him.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Benevolent presence.
yeah. Until
He kills a cop.
Right.
Which, honestly, I'm fine with.
we'll have to. No one here is objecting to that. We're
Yeah,
all-
that cop was
Yeah,
a
he was a
Exactly.
huge
He was a
asshole.
cop on the take.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
totally.
think it is interesting. Like, what are the rules of ghosts? Like, so they can basically just have free reign over anything
In
in
this
their
movie,
purview that's related to their impact.
case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he seemed to
Right.
not be limited to the house, which was interesting.
And he can force people to astral project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so my question is, did he kill Georgie Scott's wife and kid just to get him there to kick the whole thing off? I mean, maybe he's
Oh.
bi-coastal. We don't know.
That'd be wild.
Anyway, well, Lance, tell
we
us a
can't
little
rule
bit
it
about.
out.
Yeah. Let's leave it on the table. Lance, so tell me about your history with this movie. Like, why? When did you see it for the first time?
I saw it for the first time when I was a kid, a little kid, and it freaked me and my brother out hardcore. We got really creeped out by the whispering seance stuff that freaked us out. Like, we would to scare each other for years. We would just because we had bunk beds, one of us would whisper Joseph, and it would freak the other one out. Yeah, one night, I think I mentioned that I had a paper route, and we the first morning after watching this, we had to go together, and we walked out the door to go deliver papers, and it's before the sun has come up, and there is a man walking down the street towards us. And he's stumbling, and we can only see his silhouette. And it sounds to us like he has a goat voice. Because he's so we run back inside and make our parents call the police. Of course, later we realize, of course, it's just a man drunk walking and crying.
Oh.
But it scared us. That helped cement how scary this movie was to us. Because
Totally.
those things happen so close together. And so it's just always been, and now it's not creepy to me. It's just fun to watch this classic, classic style ghost story, and it's very patient, very slow, and I like to imagine George C. Scott getting the screenplay and just being like, so I just go and check faucets. Half the movie is just him turning off faucets.
checking in on rooms. Well, so let's set it up a little bit then.
Yeah, let's
So,
kind of walk through the plot. Maybe.
so there's a prologue, or but like before the sort of like proper meat of the story begins. There's an idyllic family vacation. George C. Scott and his like far too young wife. He's too old to have that child.
Oh yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A very young child, a very young wife. They're pushing a car in upstate New York through the snow. He stops. Gets into a payphone to like call a mechanic or something
The
like
world's most oddly placed phone booth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
It
the
is
middle
the
of the
middle
snow.
of
Dead
the
ass.
wilderness.
Yeah.
that. Middle of nowhere. And then I think there's like a car swerves, and then also an 18-wheeler. They sort of
They
crash
swerve to avoid each other, and
and they smash into
Both
his
of
wife
them.
and daughter. And
Both of them into the family.
so it's also a recurring
overkill.
bit on this show where it's like there's another instance of Emma's empathy corner because what?
Insert the jingle.
Yeah, this is where we drop the jingle in. What happened?
well, I laughed. But here's the thing: I wasn't laughing at the daughter and the mother getting killed because
Sure seemed like it.
it was the cartoonish way that it happened, where like they set it up and you could tell it was going to happen because they were like playing snowball fight and everyone was so happy, and then you see the truck,
Slow motion.
yeah, and everything's just like you can see it happening. Like I even called it out that it was going to happen, and then it did.
Okay, frack much.
Well, I'm just saying it was obvious. I'm not saying like I'm some genius. I'm saying like they made it very clear that this
Yeah.
was going to
Yeah, they
happen.
telegraphed it.
it.
Anytime.
Everyone's having way too much fun and enjoying each other's company way too
Yeah.
much.
What family vacation is that cheery
They're all just
when
like-
you're stuck in the snow?
Right,
Like
yeah.
I've been stuck in the snow on family vacations. We were all fucking miserable and screaming at each other.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
family was just near the car, screaming each other, biting each other's head off, they all would have died, and then we could have like just disposed of this whole dirty business. We wouldn't have had to go to Seattle. None of this would have happened. But I think that's the weird thing about this movie, or like kind of watching anything from this era, is that like the pacing is so much slower than what we're used to. Like we have a kind of like faster kind of like narrative style. So it does elicit weird reactions like that. Like later on in the movie, a boy is basically drowned. A naked boy is drowned by his father, and we're all
In a
sort
very
of,
weird way.
in a
where
weird
he's
way.
holding his legs.
and we just all eat popcorn and just kind of like, no big deal. Because I think it's something to do with kind of like the pacing and then the way that it's filmed. It doesn't feel as visceral as
Yeah.
maybe what we're used to seeing.
If
Yeah.
you shot that scene now, there'd just be like so many quick cuts and
Yeah.
like
Oh,
it'd
yeah.
be way more graphic. and yeah, it'd be totally different.
Well, so then George C. Scott, he's widowed now
He's
in
sad.
mourning. He moves across the country to Seattle. He's a composer.
He's a wealthy
Yeah.
composer.
He's a wealthy, famous composer.
Yeah,
because
so
of his-
rich.
so
I'm
rich.
trying to think if that
Obscenely
could be
wealthy.
like maybe he's like John Williams. I'm trying to think
like a
how,
film composer.
Well, yeah, like I'm just trying to think of how you could have that much money as a
Well,
composer.
he's teaching a class at
Yeah, he's a
Seattle
professor.
University or something like
Yeah.
that, and he gets there on the first day, and it's a mob scene because everybody's come out to see it. I'm like, in what world is everybody like dying to see? I mean,
At a university. Like,
okay, fair enough.
I can imagine like a bunch of like music nerds freaking out
That's true.
about
Good point.
a composer showing
It's a
up.
conservatory. They've got a lot of
Yeah.
music nerds.
Yeah, if you've
there.
ever been around a music department, they're all like
Fucking
that.
nerds.
They all suck. Calling you out, nerds.
And so he gets there and he's like trying to start his life over. Is he successful? Maybe by and large, I don't know.
Well, the thing that happens when he gets to Seattle is he sees some friends. I don't know if he sees them before or not, but they're like, "Oh, we can set you up with a rent house." And then we cut to him going to his new rent house, which is this stately manor that is in complete disrepair, but it's massive.
Yeah.
He is a single man.
Single man.
And he just is like, yeah, this suits my style. This is where I need to be.
Well, it has a music room, Kyle. Of course he needs this
Yeah,
insane
Sure.
mansion.
Yeah.
He needs a music room for composing, like a fainting couch to cry on, because he's lost his family, and that's about it. It's a big house, and
a
it
huge house.
and it hasn't been rented for like 12 years.
years.
Like they've had a hard time renting it.
I wonder why.
His love interest is introduced. She's the realtor. She drives him up the drive so they can check out the house.
Immediate chemistry between the two.
Real talk. Claire's my favorite.
I think she's great.
She was great. I just didn't get what she saw in him.
maybe
Did
she's
she see something in here? Like
Definitely.
we say that there's chemistry, but there's no mention of anything
Well, they
romantic.
go riding
and
together.
They go riding together.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Which is just
hot.
rich person shit, I feel like.
Well, but when they drink together at the orchestra, which is another rich
Oh, yeah.
person.
She gives him the eyes a
gives him
little bit.
eyes.
She
yeah.
introduces him to her mother.
Immediately.
I love
Which is
her.
what you do if you like someone.
Sure.
I thought she was cool and stylish. She's often seen wearing coats like without her arms in them, just draped over her shoulders.
Yeah, she was a very fancy, posh.
She shows up in a
lady.
dressage, like a full riding outfit. She
works
rules.
at the. She's not a realtor. She works at the historical society.
Right.
Probably because she already got money.
Yeah, exactly. Like no one and you know what? I'm guessing that's what his situation was too. Family money, not.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
If you're going to
composer
become
money.
a composer, yeah.
It's all generational.
Which is fine.
It's not.
Well, but I'm saying like
We have two goals in this podcast. We want to make people who are scared of movies more comfortable with them, and we also want to tear down capitalism.
Yeah, we're trying to
Listen, you
raise the
rich
estate
fucks.
tax.
We're coming for you. And then it kind of like hits all the beats of a kind of classic haunted house movie, right? Or like a kind of like ghost whodunit. It almost feels like a episode of Law and Order beyond a certain point.
Yeah,
because he's
kind
just
of.
sort of like,
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they go and look at the microfilm at the library.
Right.
I mean, it's just like all the classic. That's another thing that's in The Ring. There's a scene where she goes and looks at the microfilm to get the story of what happened to the girl. So it's like I'm just keep trying these parallels. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward. It's crazy you go so long without like a ton happening. Like the movie was satisfied with just like the scare's gonna be bang, like you just hear banging.
Right.
yeah, just like eeriness.
well,
Right.
that's always like. Why do ghosts always slowly escalate situations? Like, why do they not just sort of like telegraph their intention right from the beginning? It's always like
right.
a little bit of like a banging noise, and like a door that was previously shut.
Here,
is
I've
now
got a
ajar.
theory, and it's not the obvious because it's a movie.
Oh,
You start big, everyone's running out of the house. They're
Yeah,
out of
they're
there. They
testing the
move. They're
waters.
done.
Yeah.
They're out of there. You start slow. They're
Yeah.
like, "What's this ghost want from me? I want to check
Oh,
this out.
yeah.
What's going on?"
but I think George C. Scott in this role is so funny because I mean, Lance, you said it before, but he he kind of is like unflappable most of the time. So it's like it's just him walking around rooms, turning on and off taps, like being somewhat curious about the situation, but not really expressing any sort of abject terror, and then continuing to live in the house.
He's great in this, and I love him as an actor. He has this vibe of just like I don't buy any of this bullshit. Like he's just kind of, you can sort of feel this aloof thing with him, but not in like a detached way. It's almost like when you're watching him in the movie, you can see him reading the script and going, "This is so stupid."
Right.
But he sells it still. I don't know. It's this crazy combination. He does the same thing in The Exorcist 3. Lance, I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of the same kind of vibe there, and I think he's great in it. I love that movie.
That's a great
Why'd
movie.
you only ask Lance if he'd seen that?
I know that the both of you had not.
I have seen The Exorcist.
Not 3.
I didn't
You're
know there
right.
was a third Exorcist.
It's
No.
good.
It's really
It's
good.
good. It's not obviously not as good as the first Exorcist,
Sure.
but it is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a kind of a different movie, but it's
Rank the How many are there?
5.
5. If
What?
you include the
Two of them are the same movie.
2 of them are the exact same movie. There's The Exorcist, Exorcist 2: The Heretic, Exorcist
Exorcist
3,
Exorcist Dominion,
yeah,
and then Exorcist.
it's
the prequel to
it's-
The Exorcist. Oh, it's Dominion.
Yeah.
Prequel to The Exorcist.
yeah, that's the full title.
Yeah.
We should
Yeah.
not get into
Yeah.
it, but
That's for another.
that's
podcast.
another episode. But yeah,
There's only 2 of those movies you should watch.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, if anybody's listening, future guests, Exorcist 1 and 3 sound like the way to go.
We're open to it.
We've
Bring
seen
'em.
one. Both of us.
I've seen one.
Yeah. Oh, so then I feel like there are 2 like amazing set pieces in this before like the kind of like culmination of everything like that. First, the seance. And so this movie was made in 80, you said?
80. Yeah,
So
came out in 80.
I
yeah.
think what is so interesting about this too is like the way that everyone, like the faces that you see in movies, like everybody is so much older. Like the mean age is so much older than anything that you'd see in a movie made now. And then they just look like human beings instead of like sort of like plasticine people who are
Right.
like the hottest
Yeah.
people in their individual towns. And so like this seance happens with almost no like pretense. It's like
Yeah, they
he's
just show up
they
and
don't
start
really
They
doing
mention
it.
a medium, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden there's a seance.
Well,
They do
there's
not
that great-
introduce the medium at all,
No.
or
Yeah.
even tell you who
Yeah.
she is.
There's that great scene where George C. Scott that precedes it, where he's walking in a hallway with a guy in a lab coat, and they stop right in front of a sign that says like psychic department
yeah.
or something like.
Yeah.
So he went to the university. He's an academic. He tracked
He
down
went to
an
the
authority.
psychic department.
Psychic studies, I think, is what it says.
Yeah.
Studies. And so then they have a seance.
Yeah.
And the people who attend the seance are the professor from psychic studies, the medium, George C. Scott. Claire's back in the mix, and she brought her mom.
Yep.
That is
Who I don't think speaks through the
Nope.
whole
No.
seance.
There's no reason for her
No
to be.
reason
That's just the
for
most
her to be
bizarre
They
choice.
needed a fifth.
They
You
need-
can't
they
have a
just needed a
seance
fifth.
before.
Yeah.
You need the 5 points of the star.
So I really want to stress like how fucking dope the seance scene
It's
is.
good.
Like,
It's
it's
very
the best
good.
scene of the movie for
Oh,
me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any earlier example of the
The scribbling.
the
I
scribbling.
think this is the
Hypograph
first. I think this is the first.
thing.
Even if it weren't, it's the
It's
best
tight.
implementation
It's so
of that
good.
I've ever seen.
But describe that.
Yeah,
though,
so for anyone who's just listening to this and not watching the movie, which is probably a lot of you because you can't find the fucking thing. So the medium is just kind of blankly staring ahead and asking the same question over and over again. It's like, "What is your name? Did you die in this house? Whatever
Yeah.
it is." And she's got a pencil in her hand and a pad of paper that she's idly scribbling on. She doesn't stop scribbling. That's what really sells it, I think. Is that
Yeah.
the whole time she's just
moving.
writing gibberish.
And then there's a guy who just
The professor
is
just
yanks
his
the-
job.
There's like an assistant who looks like Frank Oz of the Muppets and Yoda fame, and he every time she fills up a page, he yanks it out and sets it aside.
And then if she writes a coherent word, he'll call
repeat
it.
it.
Out.
Yeah. So she'll ask like, did you die in this house? And she, even the audio design is great because you can hear it. She's not scribbling anymore. She's writing a word, and it's very specific. Oh, it's so good.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And,
And
so
we discovered that the ghost's name is Joseph. It's not the girl who
Right.
got killed by a cart. That was just a red
but
herring.
there's a red herring. There was another child that lived in the house who got hit by a coal cart and succumbed to her wombs in her wombs.
Her wombs.
wombs.
Who among us has not succumbed to our womb? And yeah, so it's the second child who is in fact the ghost. And then there's a second half to that seance. The
Yeah, there's
weird-
a weird thing where like they do all that and they get like the name of this kid, and you think it's over, but then we cut to another seance in the same space, and they're all sitting around the room, and there's a big tin cone,
Yeah.
sitting in the middle of the table. It's very tall. It looks like a stretched out bullhorn, kind of, and it's
Or gnome hat.
or gnome
Yeah.
hat,
Yeah.
it's sitting in the center of the table, and the medium is again just asking questions to the ghost, like not yes or no questions. It's just full on like how did you die type thing, and the cone starts rattling.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Well,
it.
But it's a distraction because you're watching that cone.
That's
Like, what
true.
the fuck is that cone? That cone's rattling, and then a wine glass flies off the
across the
table and
room.
smashes.
Well,
yeah, that's an effective scare, but it also just kind of leaves you like,
Why is that cone there?
what's the cone
What's the cone
supposed
for?
to do?
Well, I think it feels like it's an important ingredient to the sort of like seance experience that the ghost has to like make something move.
Mhm.
It can't just be a sort of like cold patch of air
Yeah.
or like a
It's not visual
they can't
enough.
use somebody. Yeah, you have to actually. Everybody, in order to be convinced, has to see something like fly across the room.
Yeah.
Seance is great. Then there's actually kind of like a third act to the seance where George C. Scott like listens back to the reel-to-reel audio of the session and like hears some hears that
Yeah.
spectral voice
Yeah.
that you and your brother.
Yeah,
are so
which you
scared of.
called when we were watching it. You were like, oh, we're gonna hear the ghost answering the questions.
Well, I think something about the title was a misdirect for me because I don't know if I'm thinking of like Changeling for me. It made me think that somehow there was going to be a mutant child or something. I don't know why I was like stuck on
Yeah.
that. So I was like, we're going to hear a voice that's like kind of like a little rat creature.
Oh.
It's like, yeah, I'm upstairs.
Yeah, for a long time, I thought this movie was like either that, like some weird mutant thing, or even I thought it was a werewolf movie for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
Before I had heard actually what it was, and I'd heard about it before watching it. I knew it was
Yeah,
a
that
haunted
makes
house
sense.
movie. But yeah, the title is not super. Plus, there's that Clint Eastwood movie that came out several years ago called Changeling with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
And it's not a horror movie at all.
It's also about a changeling. Right?
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing.
Well, so is this is a concept that I guess I'm not familiar with, which ends up being
Yeah,
the
I didn't know
central-
that was a thing.
So when you basically swap out your child for another child.
What a weird thing to have a word.
Have a word for it. It's like it was such an epidemic in the early 20th century that someone's like,
Yeah.
somebody needs to.
We were just losing track of kids all the time.
Well, so there's a big exposition dump, kind of like in the last 30 minutes that kind of kicks off the.
For us to try to recap what actually happens at this point is very difficult.
Well, Lance, take a stab at it because we were all. I think the audio is very low
Yeah.
in the movie, and so all of us were a little bit like, "Wait, what happened?" And you tell us.
Well, so we had met a senator earlier in the movie. We find out that senator was adopted to replace Joseph, the boy who was sick and dying, and murdered by his father that wasn't his blood father. He was the stepfather of Joseph.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The father in that family was not heir to a fortune, but Joseph was. And it was in the will that it had to have been Joseph was going to receive the money, but the father would not have. But unless Joseph died.
Right.
So he went ahead and just murdered real Joseph and then adopted a child and sent him away to a hospital, and he miraculously came back at 18, cured.
Fully recovered.
Yeah, fully recovered. And that was Senator Carmichael, the senator that we had met earlier in the movie.
So that was my one thing about the movie, like the senator being the bad guy. It's not really his fault.
Yeah, it's like this.
Yeah.
It's implied he like knows, but he's not complicit. Like
Yeah.
the core act.
They play it a bunch of ways. When he first confronts him with it in the senator's house, George C. Scott has found this medallion. Well, I guess we should talk about the well.
Yeah.
a
Well,
little bit.
so Joseph is. Again, there's that weird sort of like. Well, what do you call it when he's sort of like astral
projecting, yeah.
Joseph kind of forces George C. Scott to astral project, so he sees Joseph getting killed, and he's drowned in this weird like metallic tub by his father.
That's the banging.
And that's the banging that he keeps hearing throughout the house. And then the body is buried in a well in an old family ranch that in later years is subsequently a house is built on top of it, and that's sort of similar to the Ring.
Yeah.
So George C. Scott goes and tears up the floor of this house. This poor woman who lives there, and her daughter is like
complete
getting fucking
stranger.
freaked out.
Also, the best editing in the whole movie.
Best
the
cut.
funniest
Good
thing in
cut.
the world is she's like, I don't know if I want you to tear up my floor, and then they show this
Smash
scene
cut.
of like the little girl getting scared, and then the mother comes in and sees what she sees the ghost, and they just hard cut to a chainsaw cutting through the floor.
ripping up that floor.
It's really good.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
So then they discover essentially the remains of Joseph, and then Joseph, the ghost, like basically makes this
Vomits a necklace out of the
out
ground.
of the dirt. Yeah, and so now George C. Scott has kind of like physical evidence, sort of who that was.
Yeah.
whose remains those were. Yeah. So
He takes that necklace to the senator. First, he tries to accost him on a runway. I love the scene. This is another great edit where he takes the necklace to Claire and is like, "Look what I found as physical evidence." She's like, "You got to tell the cops." He's like, "No, I alone can solve this."
He actually says that, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got
Like,
a bit of a savior
He's
complex.
full on white manning, just like, "I will fix it." And he's like very diligently, he's putting on his coat, and you're like, oh, George C. Scott's gonna go fix the problem. And then cut to him madly driving through a barricade at an airport and just jumping out and screaming at the senator like, yeah, I got the necklace! You need to see this! Hey, I know about Joseph! And you're like, oh, this is your plan to do this? This
When he
was the
says,
plan the whole time?
He'll listen to me.
extremely old man to even more extremely old man.
Even
He'll get
older
my
old man.
point of view.
Even more stoic old man. Like that guy, whenever it was on him, you could not tell what I couldn't tell what he was feeling.
Yeah,
He's got-
you cut
the
to
senator, yeah.
He's
looking
got
at
one
him,
of those old
waving
man
that.
mouths that's like just a line. He's got no lips
Yeah.
anymore. It's just a crease in his face, his wrinkling face.
Yeah, he's like a poor man's Max von Sydow. He like has that just dead look on his face.
So then, after that happens, the senator sends one of his goon police officers to go visit
intimidate.
George C. Scott, because senator thinks he's being blackmailed. And the cop comes and is like, "Give me that necklace, or me and the boys are gonna come down here and bust up the place." And George C. Scott's like, "Bring it on." And then the cop dies.
That cop dies
immediately in a car accident.
In a car accident. Claire always, she's his girl Friday. She's there on the scene. She calls him. I'm just like, that cop, he's dead. And so we've.
And he died in a suspicious way. His car just flipped over.
With a full, perfect circle, smash out of the windshield
Yeah.
so we can see his bloody face, but also, I guess maybe Joseph took that rubber ball or
Yeah, I
something
couldn't
and
tell.
whipped
Like,
it
Yeah,
through
I
the
don't
very
know
unclear.
how he did it, but
The
it's
mechanics
implied.
of it are odd, yeah.
But
that the
again,
ghost
this is
did it.
not on the premises of the house. So the ghost has flipped over a car and killed a man inside of it. So it's like, what are the rules?
Well, he also goes to the well.
He goes to the well and makes
That's right.
Yeah.
squirrels up the little necklace. So, I mean, I guess he's basically anywhere. I don't know the geography of Seattle.
Maybe where
but
he's been. So his body's in the well, so he can
Yeah.
go there. And then
The cop
he
was
used
in
to
the
live in the
house.
house, and the cop was outside the house. He probably played in the street a little bit. Well,
Yeah.
no, he couldn't. I don't know.
Well, he might have wheeled
Oh.
around in the street. We don't know.
Yeah.
Although definitely nobody was going in the street
But
after
can
that
we-
coal cart
Can
accident.
we bring up the fact that he was in a wheelchair and they put him in the attic of a 3-story house?
Yeah. Did not
like,
appear to be any ramps.
Dang,
No.
that's cold.
And they
very
shut
cool.
him off. That house is huge. They shut him off in a Harry Potter style, tiny
Yeah,
Yeah.
cupola,
little room. that they're
highway.
clearly like, we don't want him. We don't want to see this kid.
Left him up
Yeah.
there with a pad of paper and a music box.
Right.
and a bathtub in his bedroom.
Which, for 1909, pretty good entertainment.
Well, the cobweb covered room looked very small and cramped, but during the murder scene, I was like, "That's a pretty nice room." I mean, all things considered, you had
Yeah.
a nice bed, nice linen. I don't know. What are you gonna do?
Sure. I just thought, wow, they put him up on the 3rd floor. That's
It is weird that the wheelchair's kept up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just get him around the room. They would
Yeah.
have to carry the wheelchair down the stairs and then have to carry him down the stairs.
Mhm.
Although
Yeah.
when he does possess the wheelchair later on, he does. Maybe he was tearing
Oh,
up those
yeah.
staircases.
Yeah.
That's
he had a
true.
kind of
Maybe he
BMX
could do
vibe, a little
wheelies.
bit, a little off-roading vibe.
And maybe they had a wheelchair for every floor, and they dutifully carried him around and let him be.
They probably had servants. I'm sure there was just a Tuttle-style servant who was just responsible for
Yeah, they
carrying,
didn't carry
carrying
it.
the boy
Sure.
around.
Carry the wheelchair. I don't have to do it.
I mean, these are monsters who killed their child
Yeah,
because he had
exactly.
arthritis. So let's not give him too much. We shouldn't cut him too many breaks.
So after the cop dies, I think basically George C. Scott then just resolves to visit the senator himself. Somehow gets a meeting with him.
Oh well,
Um,
and also Joseph the ghost is a fucking asshole at this point
Yeah.
because
He's
is
angry.
that the scene where we kind of from above peer down on George C. Scott through the staircase? And he
That's
says-
after the senator.
Okay.
Yeah.
After the
Yeah.
senator, yeah.
Yeah.
So he goes to visit the senator and confronts him with this information. He has the necklace, and he says he's very angry at the senator, which is kind of this is what I mean was it's an interesting choice where he's like, "You don't deserve this. This stuff doesn't belong to you," which is if the senator doesn't know, it's like, yeah, it does. What are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I get the feeling the senator does know.
Well,
though.
he knows
think
because
so?
he was an
Yeah.
orphan. He was 5 or 6 years old,
Well, I
and
thought
he
that.
got bought at the orphanage.
I kind of thought that, but also then there's the scene later where it's showing him what happened. So I took that to mean that he's discovering this for the first time.
I don't
Well,
think
discovering
he
the
knew,
murder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he knew his father was a murderer.
But he
yeah.
knew that he'd
that
replaced
he'd replaced the
someone.
kid. I
He
still,
thought the kid just died because he was sick.
I still sided with Emma on this. I feel like he is not directly culpable and kind of closer to innocent than guilty. So him kind of dying.
He
at the
knows
end.
his fortune is built on a lie. He just doesn't know the circumstances behind it. He
Yeah.
doesn't
That
know
makes
there's
sense.
enough
Okay.
that there's their murder.
That makes sense.
I mean, he's so filthy rich and he's a politician, so we innately do not trust him. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I need to know that he's evil too, to see
Yeah.
him, to justify him sort of like dying or having a cardiac event.
Yeah, I didn't think he should die.
Well, the movie plays it like it's justice, kind of, that he's going. So what ends up happening is he's confronted with this information. He denies it. He's angry at George C. Scott for bringing this to him. George C. Scott leaves the necklace with him and some documents and the recording of the ghost. And it's just like, it's all yours. I'm not trying to blackmail you. Just keep it. Sorry. And he leaves. And then the senator later drapes the necklace over. There's a
portrait.
great shot of him holding both necklaces, looking back and forth like it's a
Like
fucking
one's the evil
Shylock
twin.
Fox.
It's pretty
Cartoon.
masturbatory. All the
It's real, yeah. And so he takes one and he drapes it over this
portrait
creepy
of his father.
painting of his father, and it starts rattling, and it shines the reflection of the necklace shines on his face, and again the astral projection happens at that point.
And he sees the murder again.
He sees the murder.
Joseph's always showing that off to people.
Yeah.
That's,
Right.
that's his one real
Yeah.
trick. Hey, here's me getting killed. Here are my naked, wet feet.
Don't look at my little ding dong. No, don't look at me. Just look at the murder part.
The interesting part of that astral projection, though, is that meanwhile, George C. Scott has gone home, and Joseph catches the house on fire, and George C. Scott sees him.
Yeah.
So the senator is actually physically
There.
in the house.
Yeah.
And then walks up
Is
and
he?
yeah, because George C. Scott sees him walk up the stairs. He's in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was confused about that.
I took it to mean that it was projection, but that somehow Joseph was like, "I'll let you see this one," like,
Right.
Because when so the senator dies, it appears to be of a heart attack in the moment because he's simultaneously looking at this necklace and also in the house. And when he goes up to the attic, there's like an explosion, and the senator dies at that moment at the same time. And then you see them wheeling his body out of the house.
Mhm.
So I just took that to mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that he wasn't actually physically there, but visible.
But however he's affected
It's
in the
somehow
projection
that
state also
energy
affects his
Right,
physical body.
traveled to him and caused him to
it's
have
ghosts.
a heart attack.
It's ghost stuff.
It's ghosts.
Yeah.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.
But I think, again, it is that sort of thing of like, I mean, I guess who gives a shit? But I guess maybe I am revealing that I don't really care about truth willing out or coming to light because I'm like, does the senator need to die or do we just need to sort of like break this story wide open and maybe he donates a bunch of his money to his charity?
Right.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking. Like he could come to terms with what happened and like donate some money.
Yeah. I mean, you could picture it happening today. Just like maybe not this exact thing, but he finds out about it. The guy who's telling him about it isn't trying to blackmail him, so they just work together and go, I'm going to own the story
Yeah.
and say, wow, I can't believe this incredible story and it's terrible. And writes a huge check, which he's clearly ready to do anyway.
I think that there's that other sequence too that before all this happens where Claire, sweet, lovely Claire, comes back to the house, is looking for George C. Scott, goes through. It's a massive house.
Yeah.
Keeps going deeper and deeper into a creepier and creepier house. Gets all the way up to the weird little attic room where Joseph lived and was killed, and then is chased back down to the front door by
An
his
empty
cobwebby wheelchair. I mean, this is the suspension of disbelief thing that I think you and I have a hard time with, where I'm like, why the fuck would anybody do
Right.
that? Get
Yeah.
out of that house.
Yeah, I mean, that's a constant thing with horror movies. Like, why are you going in there? That thing. But I also think, well, for her, there's not a great excuse.
She
Like,
hears his voice.
She hears his
does hear his
voice.
voice.
That's
but
helpful.
Yeah. But at one
it's a
point,
trick.
like when she gets close to the attic, you're like, he would have responded to you by now.
Yeah,
he
would
Yeah.
If he
have said
wants you
something.
up there, he's going to say something. Don't go in there.
Yeah.
Well, Claire's pretty thirsty and meddlesome at the same time, so she's always popping up at the house kind of
Yeah.
unannounced or like just kind of being in the house. So I guess maybe she's got a key. Sometimes she knocks, sometimes she doesn't. So, I mean, it's not out of character.
Yeah. But I do think the movie passes the test as far as like why wouldn't George C. Scott go? Because it gives you his wife and child dying. So for that first part of the movie where you're not quite sure what's going on, I at least was with him, just like, oh, I understand why he doesn't want to leave.
Mhm.
He either thinks this is somehow his child, but I don't think they really were trying to imply that. I think really what he was just like, this is something I can.
Well, sympathetic to the life of a child that was cut
Yeah,
short.
yeah, sympathetic to that
Yeah.
tragedy.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense for him to stick around in that case and try and like solve that mystery.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
it turns into this whole other thing, and it's like at that point he's already in, so it makes sense for him to just keep going with it.
Do you think that like this sort of like pacing and style of movie could have like, because somebody could do not like a remake of this, but something in this style that is like very slow and sort of deliberate and have a kind of contemporary following?
I don't know. Well, like, have you seen The House of the Devil? Like,
I have, yeah.
There's kind of like a I think they call it like mumble horror or horror
Mhm.
We
whatever.
were kind of joking about that when we watched Creep.
Yeah, that falls into that, but
Mhm.
it's that same kind of thing where it's like it's just a very slow pace, like it's intentionally a throwback to that style, and I don't think it works with a modern look, like a modern like.
Yeah, The House of the Devil is an interesting example of it because it has that slow burn leading up to the ending, but that movie really pops off. Like when it gets crazy,
Right.
it's like holy shit.
Right.
Like it switches from that like late 70s style to like modern very, very quickly.
Right. That's true.
I was thinking about this movie called I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix
That's
right
on
now.
Oh, I've heard about this. Yeah.
It's extremely slow, but it's a haunted house movie. There's a lot of similarities to it. It's the same kind of thing. Like, woman is in this house alone, and it's haunted, and she's kind of trying to figure out like why, what happened. It is not a successful movie, I don't think. Like, people don't talk about it. It didn't get a theatrical release. It was
I see
only
it
put out
on lists
Netflix.
sometimes that it's like these like little hidden gems. or
Yeah,
something that you didn't-
it's
that you can
exactly,
stream
and that's
now.
what I think the Changeling would be now. Is
Yeah.
that you wouldn't have a huge star in it. It would be released on a streaming service. People would be talking about it and be like, "Ah, this movie's really cool. You should check it out." But it would not be a hit, I don't think.
Do we want to do ratings?
Yeah.
Let's do ratings and then I'll ask my question.
Ooh.
Oh,
Okay.
tease, okay.
I can go first. So we're doing thumbs up, thumbs down, like whether or not we'd recommend it, and then scale of
Scariness.
1 through 5 of scariness. What do we
Scariness
want
rating.
our metric to be this time? Cobwebby wheelchairs or
Bathtubs.
weird aluminum bathtubs.
How many bangs? How many
How
bangs on a
many
bathtub?
how many bangs on a bathtub? How many bouncy balls?
I was thinking a relaxing thing, like how many
Oh, right.
music boxes.
Right.
Ah, there you
Oh,
go.
how many
okay.
creepy
How many
music
like
boxes.
horse riding trips with Claire would you have to go on to calm down?
I like that. Let's go with that.
So I'd say thumbs up. I think this is really interesting, like particularly like as we get into sort of like kind of academic point of view of like kind of trying to classify all of this sort of stuff and figure out like kind of how it relates to each other. It's crazy because it's got all of the things that you would expect from a movie like this, and it's very old. So I'm like, oh wow, like there it is, all in like one sort of like
Yeah, this is all
tidy
right
little
there.
package. So definitely a thumbs up. Like I think it's. I'm reminded of the conversation we had about Halloween, where it feels like it's not scary; it's like atmospheric. But I think we both got jump scared twice.
Yeah, I got a few little jumps
Yeah.
in there.
You both vocalized scares. You both yelped.
Yeah.
At certain points in the
there were
movie.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go 1.5. I don't know what would be a 1.
1 is the minimum.
Yeah,
One-
the,
yeah.
like,
There's no
Like,
zero.
not
It's
One
just
scary.
would,
straight
yeah,
up,
I don't
no
think there's a zero.
No scares.
One
Yeah.
would be like, I don't know. All dogs go to heaven. Like just like some like
There are
completely
scary parts in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
harmless-
Animals dying. That's scary.
yeah, maybe that's a
Yeah.
bad example.
Yeah, 1.5.
The Care Bear movie. I'm just gonna name 80s animated films, or early 90s, I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna hedge my bets. That's what I'm gonna say.
Great.
Yeah,
Uh,
Kyle, let's go just clockwise.
I'm gonna say thumbs up.
You'd been trying to see it for a while.
Yeah,
It's been on your list.
I have been. Well, I mean, like trying to see it implies I've been like searching for it, but I did look for it a little bit because every time a new ghost movie would come out, people would talk about The Changeling and how it related to that. I was like, God, I gotta see this movie. And I loved George C. Scott, again, from The Exorcist 3. So I wanted to see it. I understand why it's in the canon. I mean, that having watched it, like, I totally get that. For all the reasons you said, you can trace all these tropes back to this movie. It does them in a way that is just like so efficient, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not a lot of fat on the haunted house stuff specifically. It's like the house is, as far as the layout, is just like a couple of specific points, and it's just like there's banging, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the extra stuff, the crime stuff, but that's almost tangential. Thumbs up. And then scariness rating. It's always so tough because the environment is just like, I'm trying to think of if I had seen it on my own,
Right.
in a theater or something.
We should mention again, if we haven't already, once again, this is one of our daytime recording sessions, full light.
We're
It
back
is
to the sunlight.
hampering the vibe a little bit.
It is actually. I would say probably 1.5 feels right. 1.5 horseback ride dates.
Cool. Emma.
I liked it. It was slow. I definitely was very tired today and maybe dozed off a little bit a couple times.
You didn't work though.
But to be fair, that could have happened to any movie. That doesn't mean this movie was boring.
I think it was not
really
as
tired.
scary though because you weren't working. You would have worked if it was scarier.
Yeah, it was not as scary, but I was in, like, I like mystery. It felt kind of almost Hitchcockian to me. Those are the kind of scary movies I can watch.
Yeah.
Again, wouldn't probably watch it by myself, but might if I happened to, if it was on TV and TV was the thing I had, I might watch it. But I did like it. I really liked the mystery element and some fun shots, spooky old house. I would say one horseback ride date.
Ooh.
Coming in. All right.
Less
Yeah.
scared than we are.
Interesting.
Not as scared. I give it a thumbs up. This holds a special spot in my heart. I also really like the mystery element. I also like how it's like the things like the banging are explained via just editing. Like you just like you saw him witness the banging. You know that that's going on, and then when you see the kid like drowning, he bangs on the bathtub. There's no point where they're like, "Oh, that's why I heard that banging is because he's banging on the bathtub." There's like it all kind of fits together, and they put it together pretty well. I really like it. Thumbs up. Normally, if I saw this like today, the first time I saw this, I would give this an absolutely a 1. It's not scary at all. But I have this fear attached to it from when I was a kid. So I always give it a 2 because it still gives me just a little bit of a tingle. There's like based in that like weird
creepy.
goat man experience.
So what was it when you were a kid? If you can sort of astral project back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go 5
Yeah.
because when I was a
yes.
little kid, and here's the thing. I wasn't scared that much when I was a kid. My parents read me and my brother Stephen King's It as a bedtime story to us. So like we weren't scared by much, but something about this movie, man, freaked us the fuck out. And we were scared for a long time.
I could see that especially as kids.
It's
like,
dead kids.
Right.
It's about
a murdered
kid getting killed.
Kid
Yeah.
ghost, yeah.
Murdered kid, yeah.
Oh man.
So here's my question. Do you believe in ghosts?
A ghost?
Ghosts.
Are those goofy ghosts?
I wasn't gonna
Hi, I'm a ghost.
Don't know what noise that was.
Get out of my house.
No, have we talked? I don't know if we've talked about this.
We have not because
because we haven't really done a ghost
Yeah.
story.
haven't
We've
really
talked
done
a little bit about which scares us more, supernatural
Yeah.
versus not supernatural. But do y'all believe in ghosts?
I mean, my answer has a qualification,
Sure.
which is like it's never happened to me, and I want it to, and I think because I'm not like yes, I absolutely do. Then I'll never get to encounter a haunting, but probably not. My life's joyless. I wish I did, but I don't think I do.
I'm sort of in the same boat. I really don't. And for a long time, when I was a kid, I desperately wanted to in that same way. I would make something out of nothing a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But now I am definitely not a believer in ghosts.
I've had people tell me their like personal ghost stories,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't go bullshit. That didn't happen. I just go cool. Like so, it's like a weird enthusiasm. We're like, oh, they exist for you, but not for me.
Right.
See,
That makes sense.
I think I wish I didn't believe in them because I don't want to. It's scary. But I do think there's something, I don't know. I've just heard so many people's personal stories that, like, I don't think could be them all being, like
sort of collective hallucination or imagination.
Yeah. Although I will say, like, the one ghost experience I did have was a hallucination. I accidentally took 2 sleeping pills instead of 1.
Oh.
And a ghost came to my bedroom and we danced. We had a dance party.
Did not go where I
Why
thought
are
it
you-
would
why
go.
are you afraid
Dance
of-
macabre.
Why are you afraid of them then? Because that sounds lovely.
Well, that's the thing. In this moment, I
Handsome
mean,
ghost?
obviously I was high as fuck. I was like, you know what? I should be scared right now.
I love it.
But I'm not.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I'm
Like-
picturing you ambient up alone in your
Just-
bedroom. Just da 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 da.
Like, I mean,
You're in a wedding
You're in
Yes,
a ball gown.
I was
You
definitely
were
in a
holding
ball
a weird
gown.
empty suit that you taped into your hands.
yeah, it's so weird. And I don't even know if that really happened or if it was a vivid dream. I think it really happened because I remember being like, what is going
You
on?
didn't
What?
really dance with a ghost. Like, you admitted it's a hallucination. Is that what you're saying?
Hey, Kyle.
Right. What I'm saying is,
Step off, Playboy.
Was she awake when it happened?
I'm
But
saying
she
Got
it
it.
might have
Okay.
even been a dream.
Yes.
Right.
Got it.
Yes, I don't think it really was a ghost. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it was clearly because I had taken 2 of these sleeping pills.
Uh-huh.
What's the story somebody's told you that gets you closest to going like, oh, that's fucked up? Can you like recall
I can't
any of them?
remember them.
I just had this woman I knew in college who, I don't even know what this is, but now I'm like, I guess there's no rules, so anything is possible. But she says they were moving out of a house, and that the people who lived in the house before, somebody had died there, whatever. And so there was an old bed that was like sort of disassembled, like in a bed frame in the attic. They carried it down. They had a garage sale. They like sold it to somebody. They loaded it up in a truck, watched it drive around the block, and it was back there when they went up into the attic. So maybe they didn't get it all out. Who knows? Whatever. But I'm like, yeah, I believe that. That's fucked up. But I don't believe in ghosts, so I don't really know how to square it.
Yeah, the most effective one to me is like a very simple one, just like because it's my family. My mom would tell me that when she was a kid, they had a rocking chair in their living room, and anytime they would talk about her grandmother who had died, the rocking chair would start moving. And it's like, sure, you know, I mean, I wouldn't deny it to her that like that actually happened. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this, but like. I just don't. I think I just have to believe that that's something
There's a
else.
draft
You know?
in the
It's so
movie.
far removed from my own experience.
Ghost, Lance.
No, I don't believe in a proper ghost. So yeah, I don't think that like the consciousness exists beyond death. I'm open to the belief that like a violent death or something could create an energy that might like fuck with our reality in a way
Sure.
that we can't understand. But I don't believe in like an actual ghost.
Yeah.
With like sort of like intention and motivation. And
Right. Emma, were you raised Catholic?
I was, yes.
Yeah. That a lot of like people who believe in ghosts are Catholic.
Well, here's the thing. I don't straight up believe in them. I'm just open to the possibility. I don't believe in God.
Whoa.
Like,
the OG ghost.
Oh, my mom
Take
knows.
that.
no, like I have straight up renounced all religion. But I do hold a little bit of space open for the possibility that there are weird, and I don't think they're like ghosts like Patrick Swayze.
Sexy. You don't mean that?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do
hunky
pottery with you.
ghosts.
I think there might be like an energy or like
Right.
feeling. And
Yeah,
I've just heard
okay.
lots of stories about simple stuff like
Yeah.
we left our windows open and it started pouring, and when we got home, they were all shut. Which is like, okay, maybe a cool neighbor did it.
Maybe,
but
or maybe the switch in barometric pressure loosened the window
Sure.
in the frame and they slid shut.
I think people just get creeped out
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely been.
Life's creepy. Yeah.
I've been in places that, I get creeped out when I go to like a library a lot of times, just as an example. And the reason that happens to me is because I saw Ghostbusters when I was a little kid.
Right.
And the library scene in the beginning was one of the scariest things I'd ever seen.
Totally.
Yeah.
So now when I'm in a library, my subconscious is telling me that libraries are places to be feared. That's why I'm so stupid. And I get creeped out. And then if that happens plus something that you're able to some sort of coincidence happens, you're able to project that creepy feeling onto that, it's very easy to then build that narrative that it's a ghost.
Well, if you're listening and you're a true believer, come on this podcast.
Yeah, tell us
let
your
us know.
ghost stories.
I'd love to have somebody on here to try to convince us, because I'm dying to be convinced.
This is full on call to action shout out. If you have a personal ghost story, we want to hear about it. Send us an email.
Yeah, or
A
DM on
Facebook
Twitter.
message. I don't think we
Facebook
have.
message.
I don't think we have email.
We do have an email
we do.
address.
I know it. I know it.
I definitely know it.
We are deafafraid@gmail.com.
We are deafafraid@gmail.com. Yeah.
Well, let's maybe. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I did a show a few years ago where we had people tell their supernatural stories, and they convinced me. I don't remember any of them now, but they were very scary. Driving home from that show sucked.
Well, that was awesome. I think thumbs up, everybody.
Thumbs up
go
all
watch this
around.
movie, particularly because it seems like it's a little bit hard to track down. So
Can I throw in one random note
Please.
about this
Yeah.
movie that I forgot to mention? Trent Reznor moved into the Tate House to record an album, and I really think that he was hoping this would happen.
That's wild.
Well, so Lance, I think we checked, and this comes out July 3rd. Got anything you want to plug? Or where can people find you online if you want to invite that sort of thing?
I am barely present on online as a regular karate on Twitter and Instagram, etc. I just come to Cold Town and watch Movie Riot on Fridays and Midnight Saturday on Saturdays at Cold Town.
Definitely do that.
And then I think we should also mention that we're going to have a live show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Friday, July
It's
13th.
happening.
11:30.
11:30 p.m. Cold Town Theater.
Details to be determined, but I mean, please come to that.
And are
because
you going to
that's-
watch the movie live?
we're trying. I think
It's
probably
so
not.
late.
Probably
long.
not.
I think
but
we're
TBD.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to announce what it is so people can watch it, and then we'll just do the kind of commentary.
recording, yeah.
So it's not Friday the 13th.
It is
Well,
Friday the
it's-
13th.
well,
The
both.
date is Friday the
I know,
13th.
but-
We probably have to watch.
We
that
have to
one.
watch Friday
Yeah.
the 13th. Oh, well, we got you here. You've seen all of them, I assume. In the, I love it. So, like, what would you recommend? Because we're kind of like, we want to know
Any
which.
of the ones in the genre.
Part 3 is real fun. That's where he gets his mask.
Yeah.
This is what you said.
And
He
it was in
doesn't
3D.
have the mask.
He doesn't have. He wears a bag on his head in 2, and
That's
one is
wild.
not even Jason.
It's
One
What?
is his
Oh,
mother.
well, don't spoil it. Okay.
Oh,
That's
just
wild.
did. Just did.
I don't care.
Who else could it be? It's probably his mom.
I will say this: the remake, the Platinum Dudes remake, is actually pretty damn good.
That's pretty
fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Cool. Well, so come to that show. Tickets will probably not available yet, but they will be soon.
Oh, no, they will be by the time this goes out.
Oh, excellent point. I don't
I
understand
bet.
how time works. So
Yeah.
coldtowntheater.com, or you can get us on Twitter and Facebook. So Twitter and Instagram, we are Deaf Afraid. And then on Facebook, we are definitely afraid. We're going to iron that out.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lance.
Bye. You guys. Bye.